Hello, writers and crafters. I'm Valerie Ihsan.
And I'm Eric Mertz.
And this is episode 69 of the podcast, and it's May 24th, 2022 as we record this. Today, we're talking about full-time writing, what that looks like, if you want it, all of the aspects of full-time writing.
Right.
But first, this podcast is sponsored by our patrons at patreon.com/Valerie Ihsan. For as low as $1 a month, you can get a shout out on the podcast, and we can make announcements for you on the podcast, and they don't have to be writing related, although this is a writing podcast. So most of the people listening are writers. Other tiers, the benefits increase: free books, Zoom calls, scene analysis, mastermind calls, and even free retreat tickets. Become a patron of the arts at patreon.com/Valerie Ihsan. I also want to give a shout out to Alex, who is a friend of mine from Costa Rica, and she just subscribed to our YouTube channel.
Oh,
to
so
watch
cool.
The podcast. Yeah. So, hey, Alex.
We're talking about going to Costa Rica around Christmas.
You are? We're going in January.
Cool.
Yep, we're going the end of January, or not the end, the middle, I guess, middle of January. Cool. Where are you going in Costa Rica?
Don't know. We're at this place where it says, next place we get on a plane to has a warm sandy beach. Where do you want to go? I started looking at Costa Rica, partly because, well, from what I saw, our kid's is 7. He's into animals and nature, and he'll I think we can entertain him by checking out some sloths and some turtles and things. And so yeah, it looks like Costa Rica has a lot of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of biodiversity there.
Love it.
All right.
What are you reading?
I'm still reading Once and Future Witches, my library book that jumped the stack. I know it's a big book. According to my Kindle or my Kobo e-reader, like I can't really tell, because they don't really have page numbers.
Okay. It just tells you how far into it you are.
I haven't looked at that setting. Maybe I should, because I'm like worried about okay, I've got like 10 days left before, right. I have to turn it in.
They're going to digitally take it away from me.
That would suck.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't know what page you're on.
Right. There was something happening on that page. I don't know, somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. So Seven Steeples will have to wait a bit more, because Once and Future Witches is still, and it's really interesting. I'm quite enjoying it. But what are you reading?
Good. I'm still on Cloud Cuckoo Land. As we talked about last week, I'm about 2/3 of the way through.
Did you finish Three Body Problem yet? I know that was your audiobook.
No, I'm probably 2/3 of the way through that. I actually got started listening to some audio drama, and I have a friend who just debuted a podcast, so my audio time has gone to those things. Sorry, Three Body Problem. Not that you're not a fun book. And here's what's funny. It's partly its setting. A lot of the listening, I listen to books while I'm at the gym. It's a really odd contrast to be listening to Three Body Problem, which is very capitalists and communists and scientists arguing about things while you're at the gym. It's just not, there's something that doesn't work there. It just doesn't. It's like eating soup in the summer. It doesn't work all the time. So
I eat soup all the time. Soup is awesome and cheap.
Hot soup in the summer, though? Are you one of those people? Oh,
that should be a song. Hot soup in the summer.
Should be a bonus episode. We'll shout out your soup recipe and see if Val will make it in August. So we're going to talk about full-time writing, huh?
Yeah. That's what I've wanted to be forever. When I'm writing this memoir, and I keep looking back through journals, and all of my journal writing, like from 2002 on, has been like this dream to be a full-time writer. And what's really sobering actually is looking back at life setups.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't look at life.
Don't look at life. What I mean is the, right now I have a part-time job, and I do author services. And so I have a nice balance right now. But, back then I had, I didn't work out of the home, and I had small children, but they were in school part of the day. And, so there were times where I could have, looking back, I
Oh,
think, I
you're doing
squandered
the time rewind,
all
right?
this
You're doing
time.
that thing.
I
Oh, I do that all the time. Don't do it to yourself. I won't
So,
do it to
well,
my,
it
like,
just
let's make a pact.
reiterates that, if you want
Right.
this to be a reality, then you sacrifice something and make it a reality,
That's
So
true. That is very true.
when did you
That's true.
become a full-time writer? This was part of, I think we discussed this on your first episode when you first joined the podcast. I interviewed you, and
Right.
partly
We can
the
rehash
Apple
that briefly.
story,
Yeah. So
but
I I've had an odd journey here. So talk about sacrifices. In a nutshell, won a couple of got ranked really high in some big screenwriting awards, and that led me into ghostwriting because there at the time, this was probably 2003, 2004. There weren't a lot of ghostwriting people who could write a screenplay. So I became the screenwriter for a number of really big ghostwriting companies, and that got me they got me a good reputation with those companies, and then I was able to start using that to go full time.
what job did you
So
have before that?
I was a case manager for adults with developmental disabilities.
Okay.
And what I did was I would get up at talk about this is a sacrifice, right? I'd get up at 5 a.m. and I'd work on a client's work until 9 a.m, and then I'd hurry off to work at 9. Took me 14 minutes to get to work from my house. I knew how much time I needed to get there. And so I'd get to work at 9, I would work until 5, and then I'd come home. And at the time with no kids and a wife that worked late hours, I could sometimes come home and work from 5 to 8 or something. So I worked a lot of double time writing for other people. And then I was also writing my own stuff. So I had to, it was kind of manic. It was really manic. So that went on sort of pulling double duty until I think 2013. It was
Wow.
June of 2013 before I had the nerve to say, okay, I'm going to do this full time. And then I quit my job, and I've been out on that, doing it on my own thing since, so 9 years. It'll be 9 years.
Wow. That's really impressive, Eric. I'm
Thank you.
proud to know you.
Thank you. Now I'm going to blush. Yeah. I mean, my wife always says, like, stop being so self-deprecating about it. It's kind of a rare thing, and you should be proud of it. And I am. It's when I look back at it, like you were talking about with time rewind. It is. I do the same thing. I can even look at those days when I was pulling double time and say, like, I could have done more. I could have gotten up at 4. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I can't say I'd do it the same way, but I would still do it.
So I imagine that some of our talk today will be about writing process too, or just like the logistics of it. So when did you said you got up at 5 and started writing? How long did it take you to kind of settle into that while you were still at the day job? I mean, was it something you just tried and it clicked, or did you try like 14 different things before something settled?
God, I wish my wife was here to answer that. Lisa would probably have more perspective, because she was always the one, that had to sort of, fill in around that, like my writing life and then like the paid job life. For a while, I tried working at night, was never very good at that. I think I have all the creative energy in the morning. So I think I probably had 2 stabs at it. It was either night or the morning. And I realized that I was the morning time. The real difficult balance was, how do I write the screenplays that I want to write for me? And, now I'm writing, how do I write my book and balance that with client work? How do I do both of those things? So I'm not, because for me, really, the goal is to be doing more of my paid work will be from books that I author. That would be more of a bigger percentage of what I do. So that's the goal. I've sort of gotten out on this professional end as a ghostwriter, editor, all those things. And now how do I transition from that into a different, with a different focus? So that's that's the thing. I still want to write the stories that I'm passionate about, that are mine. But then I have clients whose stories I'm just as interested in, but I have to make sure that they get, equal time. So that's been the real balance.
And they pay the bills
Especially,
right now too.
pardon?
And they pay the bills right now too.
Oh yeah,
The ghostwriting. So
They do.
when do you, I think you told us in another episode that you write for yourself in the mornings and then you transition in the afternoon to doing client writing. Is that still true? I
That
have
is
another
still,
street sweeper going by.
there's the street sweeper. Now I hear it. Yeah, so my schedule will be, it's really rigid. It's 7 to 8 is sort of like marketing and time, and then there's from 8 to noon is right for me time, and then from noon on is right for client time. Wednesday, I do every other Wednesday. I write all for client all day. And that depends on schedule too. I think in June, things lighten up a little bit. I think I'm taking care of a lot of smaller jobs and getting done with those. And I'll be focusing on just a couple of big jobs throughout the summer. And then that will be, it's nice to have 1 or 2 big jobs rather than multiple small jobs. It just makes the work a lot easier.
That's interesting. I quite like the little jobs because then I get the dopamine hit of finishing.
Well, it's funny you say that.
I really like that.
That trade-off is tough because the bigger things, there's a lot more, there's waiting, you have to be patient. But there's there's the writing, and then there's the client servicing time. There's a lot of, I'm communicative. I talk to my clients all the time. Unlike a lot of people that are ghostwriters, I really involve them in, I don't like to be that ghostwriter. It's like, well, I know how to write I know your story, just leave it to me. So I try to do a little bit more of like, let's talk about what I'm doing with the story that you're bringing to me so that you recognize it when you get it. So there's a lot of client that stuff.
So 13 years as a full-time writer. That's exceptional. I hadn't put that together in my head that it had been that long. So bravo. That's awesome.
Thank you. Let's get 13 more.
Right. I have never been a full-time writer except for, I was just telling my husband this on a dog walk the other day. When COVID hit, when the lockdown hit for the US here, I was laid off from my part-time job for 3 weeks before I went back as the full-timer because the full-timer quit. She quit. And for those 3 weeks, I was like the happiest
You've ever been.
It was amazing because I finally got to be the full-time writer. I got to set my own hours. I could take a dog walk in the middle of the day in the sun, after lunch or something with my husband. And we got a little more, we were both working from home, so we got to see each other a little bit more, but we still stayed focused on our own things. And there was just a very well-balanced life work balance. I said that wrong. And as soon as that 3 weeks was over and I went full time, I surprisingly, actually, the correlation, I don't know if it was COVID related or not, but I had all these editing jobs all of a sudden. And I was backed up maybe 3 or 4 months actually. And so I was working full time and as a part-time, I guess, editor too, doing that on nights and weekends. So I think I lasted as a full-timer for maybe, I think it was a whole year. It was a year and 2 months. And I just couldn't take all the hours and the stress and I wasn't able to, I don't know, I beat myself up a lot about letting down my boss and asking for part-time hours again. And also the story I was telling myself that I wasn't cut out for full-time work. and really that's not true, because
Right.
as someone who works for themselves, I'm sure well, you
Yeah.
work a lot of hours.
Yeah.
And so it's not that I'm afraid of hard work. I've always worked since I was 13,
Right.
except for the, time when I was raising my kids. And then,
Which is work.
Which is
That's
work.
That's work.
That's true. Thank you.
You don't get paid for it, but you get work. It's work.
Yeah. So I've always worked, and hard work doesn't scare me at all, but I really like the freedom of setting my own hours. So full-time writer is definitely been a goal of mine for a long, long time. And and I feel like I would, because I had that 3-week little window of, gee, what it would be like. I know that I would be good at setting my hours, like some people I've heard that go into full-time writing all of a sudden don't have as much not drive, but like the box is gone. And so they kind of freak out a little bit about how to manage their own time, because they don't have the constraints anymore. And I don't think I'll have that problem.
You may not. It's funny you say that. I think I had a friend, we were unemployed for an entire summer together, and we would go to the library and we would get all the books and movies and CDs we wanted to listen to. And it got really, I don't want to say boring, but it got really weird really fast, because there was no box. I had all day to do those things. And so there was no like, when am I going to get my precious reading time? And when am I going to get my precious music time? It was just always there. And it was hard to feel like it was, it was hard to give it meaning. What you're talking about is, yes, like I remember, yes, that's the whole, like, you have to, when I left, I was really tough on myself for about 6 weeks. I wouldn't give myself a break. Lunch was between 12 and 12:30. And if Lisa said, let's go get lunch at 12:45, I would say, no. So, but you also have to have that structure, because you can always say yes. I can always say yes to the laundry. I can always say yes to the dog walk, the beer at 2:00. I can always say yes to those things. So you have to have that, like, in anything entrepreneurial, I think you need to have the ability to say yes when you need it and no when you need it. And obviously you have to say no a little bit more than you say yes to those indulgences, but give yourself that break, go take the dog for a walk if it's a beautiful day, and you're getting off 20 minutes early isn't going to harm anybody.
Right. Yeah. I think
it might actually be better for you as a writer.
Right. So I went on a couple of writing retreats with a former mother-in-law, and that's all we had to do was just write. And I found that a natural rhythm that happened over the course of a couple of weeks would be, start writing after breakfast, and around, I don't know, 1 or 2, stop for some lunch. And then I would just sort of like goof off for like 2 to 4 hours, maybe watch a movie, take a nap, I don't know, something. And I would be like, partially feeling a little guilty about it, but I'm like, wait a minute, this is a retreat. I can do whatever I want. Right. So giving myself permission to do that. And then inevitably I would start working again around like 4 or 5:30, and I'd work for another 2 or 3 hours. So it kind of feels like siesta is the life for me. So my 20-minute early, leaving the workplace early to walk the dog would actually look more like taking a 4-hour lunch and sit in the hot tub and read a book and and then I'd get back to work again and work until like 7 or 8. I kind of feel like that's the way it would be for me, but I don't know. And I'm looking forward to it. I did give my after the holidays, I gave my 1-year notice at the bookstore. So in January, when I leave for Costa Rica, I will come back to being a full-time writer.
Yay.
I've got 8 months and counting. We're
going to reprise this episode and talk about it from, in a
On the other
year, we're going to
side.
talk about, we're going to talk about how it works for you. And I'll bet you at that time, it'll be different for me too. This evolves, this process evolves. You'll start it differently. You'll say like, okay, this works best for me. And then you might find that a year into it, it's
I've
just,
got a friend that is a full-time writer, and she's a single mom. So
oh man,
she often compares her writing life with parenting. You get to the stage and okay, you finally figured out the kid and you know what he needs and how to do it, and you do it well, and you're proud of yourself and you're proud of your kid. And then all of a sudden, a new developmental age comes about or something, and his needs change. And then you've got to like totally recalibrate your writing process so that you can fit it into and coming to terms with that and finding the grace in the transition times of, okay, I'm not going to write for these 2 months because he's out of school and there's no nanny or whatever.
You have to recognize when you talk about just the developmental, like in your mini peaks and valleys. Like there are days when I will, and I've gotten good at this. I think if anything I'm good at as a creative entrepreneur is I know I can look at the schedule and say, I'm going to be done with this on Thursday. Do I have to fill Friday? So I know how to like look at it. I know how to look at the schedule and say, this is the day to like do something different. If I'm going to get ahead on client work, Friday's great because I'm finishing with my rewrite on Thursday. Or I think it's just, you have to be rigid with yourself. I had a former father-in-law who he worked for himself, and he said he'd get up every morning, he went to the gym, showered, and dressed as if he was going into the office to sit at his own desk. That's what he did. And he needed to do that. I tried that for a long time. It didn't work. I have a different rhythm. And so I think you have to recognize what those things are, embrace them, and then recognize that you're a human that has these weird other things that happen to you that are not rigid, and then just do it. We've talked a lot about too, like what we're writing. Like part of it is like, one of the things I had to do as a professional full-time writer is I had to write something that had zero financial promise to it. Like this is not part of the business plan. This is just something that is, so I have a lot of little things going that are just.
Are you talking about content marketing or
no, they're just like
ideas?
They're just like little story ideas, like this is a kind of in the weeds, but like I ended up buying something. There's a shop teacher in Portland Public Tool District whose name is Silvernail. That's his last name. I'm like, what a perfect name for a shop teacher. And then I said that to somebody and they said, or a vampire hunter. And I thought, oh God, that would be so great. So I started writing this like silly story about, Silvernail, the vampire hunting kid. And it doesn't have to go anywhere, but I'm a creative person and I like doing the silly things that make me amuse me. And sometimes that's the energy you need to finish the drive on a client project. Just write something silly.
That's part of filling your creative well. Back to the episode we had
back to that topic.
That's cool. Yeah. So I did want to touch briefly. I've heard this said in the writing sphere in the last, I don't know, since COVID, really, like people have been bringing this up. So yes, it seems like there are many, many, many people in the writing world whose aspiration it is to have a full-time writing career. And there are those who don't actually. They don't have any designs on working full-time for themselves at home. That sounds horrible to them. And they need the social, interaction of going to a day job and for, whatever reason. So I guess I just wanted to say that like, it's not the holy grail for some people. And that's cool. Finding your own path and finding what works for your creativity and also for your business goals.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have I work 6 hours a week out of the office. I do 6 hours a week. I actually contract back with the old case managers that I used to work with. And I work with a couple of guys one of the guys I used to be case manager with actually, I was his case manager since he was 18. He's just now turning 40 or 38 or something. No, 39.
Mm-hmm.
We've known each other forever. And so I am his recreation person, and I take him out and we go to movies, we play board games, we go to bookstores. I have 2 people that I do that with during the week. And for me, that's just, so when I got into, I had this transition where I was going to do this recreational providing thing. And this was going to be a big part of my income until I really got on my feet as a ghostwriter. But I found that even as I got on my feet as a ghostwriter, I needed those relationships, like my time with those guys, to get done with the work in here and to go out there and to go take a hike and go to a burrito cart was just what I needed that. And so I ultimately couldn't give up. Even just that 6 hours a week is enough to keep this all feeling fresh. So I think, if it's not full-time, I look at, it's funny we talking about full-time writing as a thing. I think the full-time writing is if you're pursuing writing as your full-time focus. Maybe you work 30 hours a week doing something else, and that's how you pay the bills, or you're that parent and that's what you're doing. But if the thing that you are pursuing passionately is writing, and that's what you're doing full time, you're not pursuing a landscaping business or candle making or whatever other entrepreneurial thing. If it's writing, I think you are a full-time writer. I don't think there's anything different between someone who's just taken that leap and made it I think there's full-time professional writer. Maybe you could add that professional thing in there, but if that's what you're pursuing, I don't think you should. I think you should take that mantle and just call yourself a full-time writer. Because when I was splitting my time, I was a full-time writer in my mind. This is who I was. That other part of me, although I was good at it, it was still. I hope no one I know from that world is listening, but it was secondary. It was what I was doing. It wasn't my focus.
I don't.
You should still quit in January, but I'm saying you, my friend, are you are a full-time writer.
Semantics won't let me agree with you, but
I know, I can see that on your face that you're not going to let me sway you.
But I do agree that mindset wise, whatever you're, when I was a massage therapist, I often wouldn't lead with that. I'd say, oh, I'm a writer, I'm a published author. And also, I do some massage on the side. So the massage was always the side hustle.
Right.
And even if I, did it more hours technically than the authorship, I don't know, I didn't ever keep track, but because often it bleeds through around, like it overlapped a lot, and some days I would do both. But yeah, that was always kind of the side hustle. I always listed myself, mindset wise anyway, writer first. So, and when I was working full time at the bookstore for Right or Wrong, that became my mindset at the time,
that you were a bookseller.
Yeah. And that,
that's
I
still
edited
cool.
on the side.
That's still cool. That's, nobody like the bookseller is one of the cool people in the village, if we're thinking of it that way. There is a
very romanticized version in people's minds about booksellers. Yes, that's true. It's a lot harder than you think, just so you know.
I would bet. I bet there's a lot of books to talk to people about, and coffee to sip, and all those things, and cookies to give to kids when they come in, right?
No, not at all.
None of that? Oh my, I hear a future episode coming.
Yeah. And we should also probably talk about authors that contact booksellers to get their books in the stores. That could be a whole episode too.
I overheard a conversation. Now we're in the weeds, but I overheard a conversation last Thursday. Somebody talking about, I'm going to take my book and I'm going to go to Pals and they're going to put it on there. And they started listing all the bookstores in Portland. And I just thought, like, I don't want to be here in a month after he's done with that whole run of getting told no with all these books, all these paperbacks. Please, the last bookstore, that'll be the sad story. Like, take them all, just take them. Tired of carrying them around.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Any takeaways? Yeah, I know that we're almost out of time. So
takeaways. Well, I think we can. I can say it's to me it's mentality. I think we will have this conversation in a year, and when you've taken that leap, and we should talk about then whether or not you think of yourself or think of what you do differently. I don't know. It'd be interesting to reflect on that. I think it's it's hard to know like what the right takeaway to say is, because what works for me wouldn't necessarily work for anybody else. I mean, I'm pretty self-disciplined, but I think if you have to use what you have. You're becoming an entrepreneur. If this is where you're going, you're becoming an entrepreneur. Have a plan, be prepared to make some shifts in that plan, and just understand that it is, writing is a temperamental thing. If you're doing it 10 minutes a day or 8 hours a day, it's temperamental. And so you just have to be aware that you're not always in control, and it's hard to make a business out of, out of a skill or something you're not in complete control of. It's not like you're, moving selling an object and just moving it across, to the counter. It's a lot different than that.
You're in control of what you can output, how much time and energy you put on something, but you don't have control over it after it leaves. If you're trying to traditionally publish, or if you're trying to sell to, a publishing house, or get an agent, or sell a self-published book on, one of the online stores, any of that is not under your control.
Not under your control. No. And I will leave it with sort of a joking one, but say, like, make no promises about doing the laundry. And but I say that it's also serious, because that's one of the things that, you're going to be working at home. The laundry will never pile up. You're working at home, and you have to treat it like a job. And so you're not just like on call for every possible everything. So
yeah, it does take some discipline and routine, I imagine. But I had 3 weeks of it, so I feel like I could do it.
You can do it. We're going to have this conversation in a year, and you're going to be teaching me things about 8 months. Let's give you a few months to settle in. Let's give you a few months, because those first months you might be like, oh my God, what did I do? I had a great gig at a bookstore.
I'll lose my discount.
I lose my, don't give the discount.
I know, maybe I'll just work like events or something.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. And like I said, you'll be teaching me something when we talk about it after you're in there, because you'll have fresh eyes on something that I'm sour on, and I'll be at 10 years at that point. I'll probably, it'll be a different routine then too. It'll be, I might just, who knows what it'll look like.
Talk about what is different. I like the idea of coming back to full-time writing, like, or just checking in on the entrepreneurial side of things, like, even not in a year, but like sooner, even like talking with you about your writing process as a stay-at-home writer and dad, and how do you fit the laundry in, and when do you walk the dog, and what were your goals for this week, and did you finish them, and like, I don't know, just the entrepreneurial side of things always excites me, and I am an entrepreneur at heart, and and that's what I think pulls me away from sometimes the time I have to write, is because I get so involved and interested in the business side of things. And
we have those side conversations all the time. And I do too. And I actually want to say to anybody who's listened all the way through, when that guy was talking about selling his books at the bookstores, like, I can't be cynical about that. Like, I want that guy to succeed. I really do. I want more of our author community to have those open doors in those places. I laugh a little bit because I've heard that before, and Pals is like a fortress of solitude for getting your book in, and it's just not going to happen. But that entrepreneurial mindset is what you have to have, right? Like, I've got this product. What do I do with it? How can I get it out to people? I know it's possible.
Yay.
Yeah, fist pumping.
Fist pumping. All right, go out, write some more, be excited,
Absolutely.
Make a plan, and send us a message and tell us what that is.
Yeah, we'd love to know what you're doing differently so we can add it to our plan. Borrow. Can we borrow?
Of course.
Yeah.
All right. Be well this week. Happy writing, and we'll see you next time.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.